Every vet has seen heartbreak. The stray too weak to survive, the animal left behind. But this was different. Dr. Elias Hartman had just finished his last appointment when the door creaked open. A woman entered, her hands trembling, a small bundle pressed to her chest. "I found him in the woods," she whispered. "He wasn't moving, but I felt a heartbeat." The puppy inside looked ordinary at first, a little German shepherd, covered in mud and thorns. But as Elias cleaned it, something in him stirred. The dirt wouldn't come off easily. Beneath the layers, he felt something cold, smooth, alive. And when the creature opened its eyes, the room seemed to stop breathing. Blue light reflected off the metal instruments, casting the walls in a ghostly hue. Elias stumbled backward, heart pounding. In that moment, he knew. This wasn't just an animal. It was something the earth had never seen. Something fragile, intelligent, and scared. And the moment he chose to help it, his quiet life became the center of a story that would change science and the meaning of compassion forever. The late afternoon light slanted through the frosted windows of Aurora Veterinary Clinic, washing the tiled floor in a pale amber glow. Outside, the wind dragged 1,000 dry leaves down the street, whispering against the glass like restless ghosts. Inside, the world was still. Only the soft ticking of the wall clock and the hum of the fluorescent lights filled the quiet room. Dr. Elias Hartman stood by the examination table, his sleeves rolled to the elbows, finishing his last chart of the day. At 53, he had the look of a man who'd spent his life listening more than speaking. Gray threaded through his beard, eyes lined from years of empathy and exhaustion. His clinic was small but orderly, filled with the scent of antiseptic and faint traces of fur and soap. He set his pen down and exhaled, rubbing the back of his neck. Most days, saving lives brought him peace. But today, like too many days lately, his mind wandered to the ones he hadn't saved. The stray with the shattered ribs, the shepherd who died in surgery, the old retriever whose owner never came back. The memories lived in the quiet corners of his clinic, whispering reminders that kindness had limits. He was just about to turn off the lights when a sound split the silence. Knock, knock, knock. Urgent. Desperate. Elias froze. Few people came this late. He glanced at the clock. 6:48 p.m. Another knock, harder this time, and a voice, shaking, almost pleading. "Please, someone help me!" He hurried to the door and swung it open. A woman stood in the doorway, shivering against the wind. Her coat was torn at the sleeve, her cheeks streaked with tears and dirt. In her arms she clutched a bundle of rags, soaked and heavy. Her breathing came in shallow bursts, like she had run all the way there. "Please," she gasped. "He's dying." Elias's gaze dropped to her arms. Something inside the bundle moved, barely. He stepped aside, guiding her in. "Put him here," he said gently, motioning to the table. Her hands trembled as she laid down the bundle. The fabric was damp, the faint smell of soil and something metallic clinging to it. When she unwrapped it, a small German shepherd puppy lay inside, no bigger than a loaf of bread, its body coated in thick, crusted mud. Its fur clung in clumps. Its paws were stiff, the nails blackened with dirt. For a long second, Elias said nothing. His chest tightened. The tiny chest rose, barely. Then again, weaker. "He's still breathing," he murmured, reaching instinctively for his stethoscope. The woman's voice quivered. "I found him. In the woods behind the old quarry. He wasn't moving. I thought he was dead." Her eyes darted across the room, wide with guilt and panic. "But then I felt it. A heartbeat." Elias looked up. "You did the right thing bringing him here." She nodded faintly, though tears kept sliding down her cheeks. I almost left him there, she whispered. But I couldn't. Not like that. Not alone. Something in her tone broke him. That trembling mixture of shame and compassion. It reminded him of a woman years ago who had said nearly the same thing over a broken stray. I couldn't leave him there alone. The words lingered, echoing in the quiet. He drew a deep breath, forcing himself into focus. Okay, he said softly. Let's see what we can do for him. He began examining the puppy, his movements steady, professional, though his pulse thudded faster than usual. The stethoscope's bell met the tiny chest. The rhythm was faint, irregular, but steady enough to cling to. Temperature's low, he muttered. Pulse weak, but it's there. The woman hovered beside him, wringing her hands. Will he make it? I don't know yet, Elias admitted, his voice low but calm. We'll warm him up first. Try to clean off some of this dirt, so I can see what's underneath. He reached for a towel and gently patted the puppy's side. The mud flaked away in thick, brittle patches, revealing patches of fur beneath. His fingers brushed something rough, like bark or scales, but he told himself it was just hardened mud. He'd seen dogs caked in worse. Still, a faint chill ran through his hand. The puppy's skin was cold, unnaturally cold, even under the clinic's warm lights. He turned to the woman. You found him where exactly? In the woods by the stream, she said quickly. There were marks on the ground. I thought maybe he'd fallen or been attacked, but there was no blood. Her voice cracked. He was just lying there, like he'd given up. Elias's stomach knotted. Abandonment cases were always hard, but there was something different about this one. A stillness in the puppy's body that didn't feel like injury, but something deeper. He looked up at the woman again. You should sit down. You're shaking. She nodded but didn't move far. Her eyes stayed locked on the table, on the fragile shape of the puppy. He looks so peaceful now, she whispered, like he's already gone. Elias met her gaze. Not yet. He turned back, adjusting the small heating pad beneath the animal and covering it lightly with a towel. The puppy's chest fluttered under his hands, rising and falling like a fading ember. For a moment, the clinic felt utterly still again. No sound but the faint hum of the heater and the woman's soft sobbing. Elias found himself speaking without thinking, as though to himself. You know, I've seen animals survive worse. Sometimes the body just waits for someone to believe in it. The woman looked up, her voice barely audible. Do you believe he can make it? Elias didn't answer immediately. He looked down at the small form before him, the matted fur, the fragile ribs, the faint shimmer of breath. He felt something stirring inside, an old instinct he'd tried to quiet years ago. Hope. Finally, he said, I'll believe enough for both of us. She covered her mouth, stifling a sob. Elias took another towel, gently wrapping it around the puppy. His hands moved with careful purpose, the ritual of someone who has done this 1,000 times, but never stopped caring. He didn't notice, not yet, how the mud on the puppy's side glistened faintly under the clinic's light. He didn't see the first hint of something metallic beneath the grime. That revelation would come soon enough. For now, there was only a man, a frightened stranger, and a half-dead creature clinging to the last breath of life. And somewhere in the soft rhythm of that breath, in the quiet between fear and hope, a bond had already begun to form, one that neither of them yet understood, but both somehow felt. As Elias lifted the tiny body toward the sink, the woman whispered through tears, her voice trembling like a confession to the dark. I thought he was gone, but I couldn't leave him there alone. Elias paused, glancing back at her. Then he nodded. eyes soft but resolute. "You didn't," he said. "He's not alone anymore." Outside, the last light of autumn slipped behind the trees, and the wind began to howl through the streets, carrying with it the sound of something fragile, something miraculous, beginning again. The small stainless steel sink in Aurora Veterinary Clinic glimmered under the white lights, steam curling up from the warm water. Outside, night had already taken hold, pressing its shadowed palms against the windows. Inside, the world had narrowed to a trembling flame of life. A mud-caked German shepherd pup lying motionless in Dr. Elias Hartman's hands. He adjusted the water's temperature carefully, not too hot, not too cold, and placed a soft towel on the metal basin. The woman stood in Tthyomosun, the corner, arms wrapped around herself, her eyes hollow with fear and exhaustion. Elias offered a quiet reassurance. "You did well bringing him here. Let's just see what's under all this." He dipped a small sponge into the water and began to clean. At first, it was mechanical, the simple, practiced rhythm of compassion. The water darkened immediately, the surface swirling with dirt and grit. Elias worked gently, wiping the pup's side in small circles. Bits of dead leaves and twigs floated away, revealing faint patches of fur beneath. But the more he cleaned, the more resistant the grime became, clinging like a second skin. "This mud's strange," he murmured. "Almost like resin." He pressed the sponge again, firmer this time. The texture wasn't right. It wasn't the slick softness of dirt on fur. It was harder, coarser, like the surface of stone. His brows knit together. The woman edged closer. "Is he hurt?" "I'm not sure," Elias said softly. "Let's just keep going." He turned on a gentle stream of water and guided it over the pup's body. The runoff came out black, thick as ink. Beneath the flowing warmth, the fur seemed to resist the cleansing, as though the creature's body didn't want to be revealed. Elias switched to his hands, setting aside the sponge. His fingertips brushed over the puppy's flank and froze. The texture had changed. It was no longer fur, no longer even skin. Beneath the thin layer of damp earth was something smooth and cool, like polished stone or scales. He frowned, blinking hard, thinking his mind was playing tricks in the dim light. "That can't be right," he muttered under his breath. He scrubbed again, slower now, feeling every inch. The substance beneath his fingers shifted from soft to ridged, almost alive. The faintest pulse rippled under the surface, not like a heartbeat, but like something internal moving, adjusting, responding. A chill crawled up his spine. He glanced at the woman, who was watching silently, lips pressed tight. "Doctor," she whispered. "Keep calm," he said, though his own voice wavered. "He's different, that's all." He reached for a clean cloth and carefully wiped the puppy's front legs. There it was again, fur fading into roughened scales near the joints, shimmering faintly beneath the lamplight. The scales were small, like those of a fish or lizard, yet arranged with biological precision. "What on earth?" Elias whispered, almost to himself. The woman's breath hitched. "Is that normal?" "No," he said quietly. "No, it isn't." For a moment, he stopped. His hand hovered above the pup's chest, unsure whether to continue. Something inside him, the scientist, the doctor, the man of logic, screamed to stop, to call for assistance, to treat this as a medical anomaly. But another part of him, the part that had spent decades listening to the silent language of wounded animals, told him to keep going, to finish what he started. He took a slow breath and began again. The water flowed steadily now, clearing away more of the thick grime. Beneath it, the creature's true form began to emerge. a fusion of familiar and foreign. The chest rose and fell faintly. The sound of breathing was uneven, deeper than a normal puppy's, with an odd rhythm, as though lungs were struggling to synchronize with something else. Elias's fingers brushed the small ribs. They flexed differently, expanding wider, almost elastic. "Stay with me, little one," he whispered. The woman turned her face away, unable to watch. When he reached the puppy's neck, he noticed a faint shimmer beneath the remaining mud. Carefully, he wiped it away and froze. There, under the weak clinic light, the skin around the neck glowed faintly silver blue, shifting as though reflecting an invisible moonlight. Elias blinked, leaned closer. The glow wasn't constant. It pulsed gently, timed with the weak rhythm of the creature's breathing. The air in the room seemed to thicken. Elias's hands trembled slightly, but he continued, heart racing. He reached the puppy's face, its muzzle caked with dry earth, its eyes sealed shut. Slowly, reverently, he began to clean there. The sponge passed over the brow, down the snout, tracing the curve of tiny nostrils. The mud softened and peeled away, revealing delicate fur, smoother skin, and beneath it, faint veins that shimmered beneath the surface like strands of light. He rinsed one last time, letting the warm water trickle gently over the small creature's head. Then, without warning, the puppy's eyes opened. Elias froze. For a heartbeat, the world stood still. The eyes were blue, but not any blue he'd ever seen. Not the blue of sky nor ocean, but something deeper, luminescent, alive. They glowed faintly in the dim light, shimmering like moonlight caught in water. The puppy didn't move, didn't whimper. It just stared at him, unblinking, silent. Elias's throat went dry. His hands hovered in midair. He could feel his own heartbeat pounding against his ribs. The glow from the eyes reflected in the metal basin, dancing across the walls. The woman gasped softly, backing away a step, her hands over her mouth. "Doctor?" He couldn't answer. He couldn't look away. There was something behind those eyes. Intelligence. Not wild, not animal fear, but awareness. The kind that studies, remembers. The air seemed charged, humming faintly. The puppy's chest rose and fell again, stronger now, deliberate. Elias leaned closer, drawn by something he didn't understand. "Hey there," he whispered, barely audible. "You're safe now." The puppy's gaze flickered, almost as if it recognized the words. Its tiny paw twitched. The faintest vibration, a hum like static, rippled through the sink. The water stilled, the air heavy with something unseen. Elias took a step back, heart pounding. His breath came shallow. The creature didn't follow with its eyes this time. It simply blinked, once slowly, as though acknowledging him. A chill settled over him. And yet beneath that fear was a strange warmth, an inexplicable connection, fragile but real. The woman whispered behind him, What is it?" Elias swallowed hard, still staring. "I don't know," he said softly, "but it's looking back." And in that silent exchange, between man and creature, between disbelief and recognition, something shifted forever. The line between the ordinary and the unknown blurred, and the world, for Elias Hartman, would never be the same again. Outside, the last leaves of autumn scraped across the clinic window. The wind howled softly through the dark, as if carrying with it the first whispers of a story no one was yet ready to believe. The clock on the clinic wall read 8:07 p.m., though it felt much later. The air inside Aurora Veterinary Clinic had grown heavy, thick with humidity and something else, an unspoken tension that made every sound echo. Dr. Elias Hartman stood motionless beside the metal sink. The small German shepherd pup, if one could still call it that, lay wrapped in a soft towel on the examination table. The faint glow in its eyes had dimmed, but not vanished. Elias could still feel it, that presence, as though something unseen watched him from within that fragile body. He wiped his damp hands on his coat, then reached for the phone. His fingers shook. The old landline crackled as he dialed. "Mira," he said the moment the call connected, voice low, uneven. "It's Elias. I need you at the clinic, now." A pause. On the other end, the familiar calm of Dr. Mira Novak, geneticist and longtime friend. "Elias, it's late. What's wrong? You sound—" "Just come," he interrupted, breath trembling. "Bring your field kit, and 2 assistants if you can. You need to see this with your own eyes." "See what?" He glanced back at the small form on the table. The creature's chest rose and fell slowly, rhythm irregular but persistent. "A puppy," he said softly. "At least, it was." A silence. Then Mira's voice changed, professional now, clipped. "I'll be there in 20 minutes." Elias hung up and sank onto the stool beside the table. He rested his elbows on his knees, staring at the creature he'd just cleaned. Its fur, what little of it remained, was soft, almost silken under the harsh light. But near its shoulders, faint ridges of scale shimmered, catching the reflection like fragments of broken glass. He reached out, brushing a hand gently across its back. The skin twitched beneath his touch, pulsing faintly. Not a spasm, a response. He whispered to himself, "What are you?" The puppy stirred, letting out a sound that wasn't quite a whimper. A vibration traveled up through Elias's hand, as if the creature was echoing his heartbeat back to him. Outside, the wind pushed against the windows, making the panes creak. When the door finally burst open 23 minutes later, Elias almost jumped. Mira Novak strode in first, tall, sharp-eyed, her black hair tied neatly behind her head. She was dressed in a dark coat over scrubs, carrying a silver medical case. Behind her came 2 assistants, a young biologist named Anton and a quiet field medic, Sarah. "All right," Mira said briskly. "Tell me what happened." Elias didn't move at first. His eyes stayed on the table. "I found him like this. A woman brought him in, said he was dying. I started cleaning the mud off and—" His voice cracked. "And it wasn't mud." Mira frowned, setting her case down. "Not mud?" He shook his head. "Some kind of organic resin. Underneath were scales, like reptilian tissue. I've never seen anything like it." Anton blinked. "Scales? On a dog?" "Not just scales," Elias murmured. "It glows, faintly, like it's reacting to temperature or touch." Mira's expression hardened into skepticism, but she said nothing. Instead, she snapped on a pair of gloves and approached the table. The puppy lay still, breathing shallowly. "Vitals first," she said, nodding to Sarah. Sarah unpacked a small scanner, placing the sensors gently along the creature's flank. The machine beeped, flickered, then displayed an erratic pattern, heart rate fluctuating between 45 and 160 beats per minute in uneven intervals. Mira leaned over, brow furrowed. "That's not possible. It's not even consistent with mammalian physiology." Elias swallowed hard. "That's what I thought." They continued. Mira directed Anton to take temperature readings, then a small blood sample. The blood itself was startling, dark crimson, but shimmering faintly under the light, as if it refracted color like oil on water. "What the hell?" Anton whispered. Mira leaned in closer, her voice quieter now. "Elias, What exactly do you think this is? He looked at her, eyes hollow. I don't think. I just know it's alive. And scared. Mira straightened, adjusting her glasses. Scared or not, it's unlike anything we've seen. Look at these vitals, cellular densities off the chart. There's rapid regeneration in damaged tissue. And the heartbeat, it's... She paused, frowning deeply. As if it's learning how to beat. Sarah looked up. Learning? Yes, Mira said softly. Like the cells are rewriting themselves. The words hung in the air like smoke. Elias's stomach twisted. Rewriting, he repeated. You mean mutation? Not exactly, Mira said. More like adaptation in real time. The cellular structure's unstable, but it's not decaying. It's evolving. Anton looked uneasy. You think it's been modified? Mira exhaled slowly. If it has, the science is decades beyond anything I've seen. She turned to Elias. Did the woman say where she found it? In the woods, he said quietly. Near the old quarry. Could be exposure to something chemical, Anton suggested. Or not chemical at all, Sarah murmured. You said it glows? Elias nodded. Only faintly when I touched it. The team fell silent. Only the beeping of the monitors filled the room. The creature's chest continued to move in uneven rhythms, alive, defiant. Mira pulled off her gloves, her voice quieter now, almost reverent. You understand, Elias. This could be revolutionary, or dangerous. Either way, it can't stay here. Elias stiffened. It's not a specimen, Mira. She raised an eyebrow. You brought me here to study it. I brought you here to help it. His voice cracked with emotion. It's a puppy. Look at it. For the first time, Mira hesitated. Her gaze softened, just a fraction. She looked at the tiny form, barely breathing, its fur matted against the towel, its face so small it could fit in her palm. Her scientific detachment faltered. It's beautiful, she whispered. Elias nodded slowly, and terrified. They stood in silence for a long moment, the scientist and the healer, separated by a line neither wanted to cross. Around them, machines blinked softly, reflecting off the creature's faintly luminescent skin. Finally, Mira turned to her team. We'll run the tests here tonight. No press, no calls. I want this contained. Elias looked down at the little form, feeling that unexplainable pull again. He brushed his fingers along the towel, careful not to disturb its breathing. She's right, he whispered, not to anyone in particular. We don't know what it is, but it's still just a puppy. The creature stirred faintly, as if it understood him. The monitors spiked once, then steadied. Elias closed his eyes, a tear slipping down unnoticed. The hum of the machines filled the silence again, a fragile lullaby over a mystery that had only just begun. The clinic was quiet again, too quiet. The kind of silence that felt alive. It was past midnight, and every member of Mira's team had gone. The monitors still blinked faintly in the dim light, casting slow pulses across the walls. A single desk lamp burned over the recovery table, where the small creature lay wrapped in a white towel. The faint rise and fall of its chest, steady, fragile, mesmerizing. Dr. Elias Hartman sat nearby, elbows resting on his knees, exhaustion written in the slump of his shoulders. The smell of antiseptic had settled into the air, mixed with the faint metallic tang of blood. His eyes lingered on the small body before him. He should have gone home hours ago, but someone, kept him there. Every now and then, the creature's paw twitched, or its ear flicked at some invisible sound. Elias would lean forward every time, watching, waiting. It was no longer just curiosity that kept him close. It was connection. He whispered, half to himself, "You've been through hell, haven't you?" The puppy stirred. Its chest fluttered once, then stilled again. Elias reached out instinctively, laying a hand beside it, careful not to touch the strange skin too directly. The surface beneath the towel was warm in patches, cool in others, like it couldn't decide which world it belonged to. He hesitated, then spoke softly, the tone he used for every frightened animal that came through his doors. "You're safe here now, little one, whatever you are." The creature's paw moved again, this time reaching forward, just a few centimeters, slow and deliberate. It brushed the fabric of his sleeve. Elias froze. The contact was slight, but electric. A faint vibration hummed up his arm, subtle, like static, but with rhythm, like a heartbeat seeking another to match. "Easy there," he murmured, voice trembling. "I've got you." The light above them flickered once, then again. Elias looked up, frowning. "Power surge," he whispered, though he didn't quite believe it. The hum grew, faint but distinct now, resonating through the metal table. He could feel it under his palms, pulsing in time with something unseen. The monitors didn't register a fault, yet the air itself seemed to vibrate. He turned his eyes back to the creature. Its breathing had changed, deeper now, more rhythmic. Its head tilted slightly toward his voice. Elias leaned closer, his voice barely above a whisper. Hey, it's okay. You're not alone anymore." For a moment, the hum softened. A lull in invisible static. Then the creature's paw flexed, its claws barely visible beneath the towel. Elias could have sworn it responded. "All right," he said quietly, almost smiling. "You need a name, don't you? You deserve one." He thought for a long moment, listening to the rhythmic sound of the heart monitor, to the faint hum that filled the space between breaths. Finally, he whispered, "Luno." The word hung in the air, soft, unfamiliar, but right. At the sound of it, the creature twitched again, as though recognizing itself. The hum deepened once, then faded to nothing. Elias exhaled shakily. "Luno," he repeated, more certain now. "That's who you are." A faint blue shimmer traced along the creature's side, pulsing faintly beneath the towel. It wasn't light from the lamp, it came from within. Elias stared, transfixed. "You understand me, don't you?" Before he could think more, the door opened behind him. "Mira," he said without turning. He knew that brisk, measured footstep anywhere. She approached slowly, the sound of her heels soft against the floor. Her face was drawn, her usual composure shadowed by something between curiosity and disbelief. "I thought you'd gone home," Elias murmured. "I tried," she said quietly, "but I couldn't stop thinking about it." She came to stand beside him, eyes falling on the creature, her analytical gaze softened. "You named it," she observed. "Luno," he said, "means moonlight." Mira's lips curved faintly. "Fitting." They stood together in silence. The heart monitor beeped steadily. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees, carrying the soft patter of distant rain. Then Mira's phone buzzed on the counter. She crossed the room, picked it up, and opened the message. The glow from the screen reflected against her glasses. Her expression changed. Disbelief first, then unease. "What is it?" Elias asked. She looked at him slowly, as if weighing every word. "The DNA results just came in." Elias straightened, his chest tightening. "And?" "It's partial," she said. 70% canine. "And the rest?" Mira hesitated, then met his gaze. Unmatched. He blinked. Unmatched how? She took a breath. Not in any database. Not from any known organism. Not even remotely close. It's alien. The word seemed to suck the air out of the room. Elias's mind struggled to grasp it. That's impossible. I thought so too, Mira said softly. But the molecular structure, it doesn't follow terrestrial patterns. The base pairs are rewriting themselves as we test them. It's as if the DNA is learning. Elias turned to Luno. The creature lay still, but its chest rose in an impossibly steady rhythm now. Stronger. Alive. Anton's voice echoed faintly in his mind from earlier. It's not from here. He shook his head. No. It doesn't matter what the numbers say. Look at him. Elias, Mira began gently. If these results are correct, this thing, he's not a thing. The words burst out sharper than he intended. His hand clenched into a fist. He's still a puppy. You saw it yourself. He's scared. He knows when I speak to him. He feels. Mira studied him quietly. You realize it responds to you differently than to anyone else. He nodded slowly, his voice soft again. Maybe he knows I won't hurt him. The hum returned, faint, steady, almost comforting now. Mira glanced around, unsettled. Do you hear that? She asked. Elias didn't answer. He was too focused on Luno, on the fragile connection pulsing between them. For a long moment, he simply watched. The rise and fall of its chest, the faint shimmer beneath its skin. Awe filled his face, tempered by something deeper. Sorrow. He whispered, He's just a lost soul, like any of us. Mira turned toward him, her voice softer than he'd ever heard it. Then maybe, Elias, he found the right one to save him. Elias didn't respond. He just reached out one last time, resting his hand near the creature's paw. The hum faded. The lights steadied. And somewhere between science and faith, between the known and the impossible, the first fragile thread of trust was woven. Not between man and beast, but between two beings searching for the same thing, a reason to keep breathing. It started with a whisper. A careless technician at the testing lab, a private email that should have stayed encrypted. And suddenly, the world knew. Within a week, Aurora Veterinary Clinic was no longer a quiet corner of mercy and medicine. It became a siege ground. Camera flashes erupted outside the glass doors like storms of lightning. Journalists pressed their faces against the windows, shouting questions that merged into a single desperate roar. Is it true, Doctor? Is it an alien? What's the government hiding? Where's the creature now? Each morning brought new headlines. Alien dog discovered in Europe. Hybrid creature defies science. Veterinarian covers up biological threat. The world had turned curiosity into chaos. Inside the clinic, Dr. Elias Hartman sat in the examination room, his head bowed over his clasped hands. He hadn't slept properly in days. The rhythmic flash of cameras through the blinds painted the walls in harsh pulses of light. Every sound outside, every car door, every shouted voice struck his nerves like a hammer. On the metal table lay Luno, asleep under a soft towel, chest rising and falling peacefully. The glow beneath its skin had faded, but the faint shimmer in its fur remained, like moonlight embedded in the hair itself. Elias looked at it, his chest tightening. You didn't ask for this, he thought. You just existed. The door burst open. Mira Novak entered, coat half-buttoned, expression carved with anger. She was holding a stack of documents and her phone, both trembling slightly in her hands. They know, she said flatly. I can see that, Elias murmured, nodding toward the window. No, Elias, though. They really know. The government has issued a containment order. They're sending a transport team. He looked up sharply. Containment? Like it's a disease? Mira slammed the folder down on the counter. Like it's a threat. Silence filled the room for a heartbeat. The hum of the machines sounded louder now, invasive. Elias rose slowly, hands braced against the table. Luno hasn't hurt anyone. You've seen it yourself. He's calm. He's aware. Mira cut him off. They don't care. The DNA data leaked, the footage of the scans too. To them, it's not a puppy anymore. It's a potential weapon, a genetic anomaly they can't control. He stared at her, disbelief darkening into quiet fury. And you're just going to let them take him? She met his gaze. For once, the scientist's composure cracked, revealing something raw beneath. You think I want this? She snapped. They're threatening to shut down every lab I've ever worked in. If I don't comply, they'll classify it as an act of obstruction. A low sound came from the table, a soft whimper. Luno stirred, lifting its head weakly. Its eyes opened, those strange, glowing eyes that had once frightened Elias, but now only filled him with ache. The creature blinked at the noise, sensing the tension in the room. Its tail twitched, uncertain. Elias turned toward it, instantly softening. It's all right, Luno, he whispered. You're okay. The puppy tilted its head at the sound of his voice, and for a fleeting moment, the chaos outside faded. But then the sirens began. Red and blue lights flashed through the blinds. The rumble of engines grew closer. Large vehicles, heavy tires grinding against asphalt. Through the window, the silhouette of armed officers appeared. Mira's breath caught. They're here! Elias felt the air leave his lungs. No, not like this. He moved toward the door, but two men in black uniforms were already entering, badges glinting under the fluorescent lights. The taller of the two, a stern-faced official with cold gray eyes, spoke first. Dr. Hartman, under federal order, we're assuming custody of the subject referred to as Luno. You'll cooperate, or we'll have to detain you. Elias's fists tightened. He's not a subject. The official ignored him, signaling to his team. Two men carried a containment crate lined with thermal padding. It looked more like a coffin than a cage. Mira stepped forward. Wait, at least let me sedate him properly. He's still recovering. The officer hesitated, then nodded curtly. Fine. Make it fast. As Mira prepared a mild sedative, Elias knelt beside the table. He placed a trembling hand against Luno's paw. The creature's breathing quickened. It could sense fear. His, hers, everyone's. Its eyes darted between faces, confused. Elias whispered, They're taking you somewhere safe, okay? You'll be all right. But he didn't believe his own words. Luno let out a low, broken sound, halfway between a whine and a cry. It struggled weakly against the towel, tail twitching with panic. The faint shimmer along its spine brightened, as though reacting to his distress. Mira injected the sedative gently into the creature's flank. Within seconds, its movement slowed. Its head drooped, breathing deepening into uneven rhythm. Elias swallowed hard. He's scared. The officer motioned to his men. Move it! They lifted Luno carefully, placing him inside the containment crate. The metal lid closed with a hiss, sealing the glow within. The sound it made next tore through Elias like glass. A faint, muffled howl, weak but full of heartbreak. Mira turned away, her hand over her mouth. Elias just stood there, frozen, his heart breaking in silence. The officer extended a clipboard toward him. Sign here. Elias stared at the paper, each word blurred. You can't understand what you're doing, he said, his voice hollow. That creature, he's not dangerous. He's He's a child. The officer's tone remained flat. It's not your decision anymore, Doctor. Mira touched Elias's arm. Her voice trembled. Elias, just sign it, please. If you resist, they'll take everything. The clinic, your license. You'll never see him again. He looked at her, eyes red, face drawn tight. Then, slowly, he took the pen. His hand shook as he signed his name, each letter a wound. When it was done, the officer nodded and turned away. The crate was carried out, the sound of boots and metal fading down the hall. As the doors closed, the clinic fell into silence once more. Only the hum of the fluorescent lights remained. Elias stood motionless, the pen still in his hand, the empty table before him. Mira spoke softly. You did what you had to. He didn't look at her. His eyes were locked on the faint outline left by the towel, the small indentation where Luno had lain. No, he whispered. I did what they wanted. Outside, the journalists cheered as the convoy pulled away, cameras flashing like thunder. To the world, it was the containment of a monster. But to Elias, it was something far crueler. The loss of the only creature that had ever looked at him, not with fear or need, but with understanding. And as the sound of sirens faded into the night, he sank into the nearest chair, whispering to the empty room. He wasn't a threat. He was just trying to live. The government facility sat miles from any town, a fortress of glass and steel buried in a remote valley, where even the wind seemed afraid to speak. Its corridors hummed with cold efficiency, lights sterile and unblinking. The smell of metal and disinfectant lingered like a warning. Emotion had no place here. Behind reinforced glass, in a sealed chamber marked Biocontainment Zone 3, lay Luno. The creature had changed. In just a few short weeks, it had grown from a fragile puppy into something larger, more defined. Its fur had deepened in color, a blend of charcoal and silver, while its scales, once patchy and small, now formed smooth, iridescent patterns along its back and legs, glinting faintly under the laboratory lights. Each movement shimmered like liquid steel, but its eyes remained the same. That haunting, intelligent blue. It sat quietly most days, curled in a corner beneath the observation lights, tail tucked close. Cameras watched it from every angle, lenses whirring softly as data streamed to the consoles outside. The scientists came in shifts, biologists, geneticists, neurologists, each eager to dissect the mystery. They called it the hybrid, the anomaly, the fusion, never by name. Dr. Mira Novak was among them, though her movements were slower now, her voice quieter. She stood behind the glass, clipboard in hand, as two younger researchers conducted a scan. Subject displays rapid cellular adaptation, one reported. Scale tissue regenerates 0.7% faster than mammalian dermis. Heartbeat irregular but stable, said another. Synaptic response off the chart. It reacts to environmental stimuli before they occur. Almost predictive. Mira barely heard them. Her eyes were fixed on Luno's face. It looked up at her suddenly, as though feeling the weight of her gaze. For an instant, she forgot to breathe. There it was again. That knowing. But then one of the researchers approached the glass with a metal probe. Luno flinched. The sound of metal against the floor made it retreat, curling into itself. Don't, Mira said sharply. The young man froze. Ma'am? She exhaled. You'll only scare it. Take a blood sample later, when it's calm. He hesitated, then nodded and stepped back. The team left the chamber, doors hissing shut behind them. Only Mira remained by the observation window, her hand pressed against the glass unconsciously. Luno tilted its head, eyes following the motion. Softly, she whispered, I'm sorry. But the creature only blinked, its expression unreadable. Hours later, after the last technician logged out, another visitor arrived. The guard at the gate frowned as Dr. Elias Hartman handed him a crumpled authorization slip. His clothes were wrinkled, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. "They said I could see him," Elias murmured. The guard glanced at the document, then reluctantly buzzed him through. When Elias entered the containment hall, the cold hit him first, an air so sterile it burned in his lungs. He walked down the gleaming corridor, past warning signs and observation panels, until he reached the door marked Subject Luno, Restricted Access. Through the glass, he saw him. Luno was lying under a white heat lamp, his body curled, breathing slow. The sight nearly broke Elias. The last time he'd seen the creature, it had fit in his arms. Now, it was almost the size of an adolescent dog, stronger, yet lonelier than ever. Mira appeared beside him, her expression unreadable. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I needed to see him," Elias replied. "I had to know he's alive." "He's alive," she said, "but I don't know if he's okay." They stood in silence for a moment, watching the creature through the glass. "He's not reacting to anyone," Mira continued. "Except you, maybe. The empathy readings spike whenever your name is mentioned." Elias's eyes softened. "He remembers." "Maybe," she said, but her tone carried doubt. Elias stepped closer to the glass. His reflection merged with Luno's faint outline, two shapes divided by inches and a lifetime of understanding. "Luno," he whispered. The creature's head lifted. The heart monitor inside the chamber began to tick faster. Its tail flicked once, uncertain. Elias's chest tightened. "Hey, little one," he said softly, voice trembling. "You're safe now. Do you hear me? You're safe." Luno rose slowly onto its legs. The light caught its scales, scattering tiny fragments of silver across the walls. It approached the glass hesitantly, one paw at a time, until only the barrier stood between them. Elias pressed his palm against the Yogstone surface. "I'm here," he whispered. Luno paused, then, with heartbreaking gentleness, pressed its forehead against the same spot. The world stopped. For a moment, there were no scientists, no machines, no fear. Only two beings, separated by glass, yet connected by something far deeper. Elias could feel it, not physically, but in the trembling quiet of his chest, in the fragile rhythm that synced between man and creature. "Good boy," Elias whispered, tears filling his eyes. "You did so well." Luno's breathing steadied. It blinked slowly, pressing harder, as if trying to reach through the glass to him. Mira watched from behind, frozen in awe. "My God," she murmured. "It understands emotion. Real emotion." Elias nodded, voice breaking. He always did. The moment stretched on. A fragile thread of connection spun between fear and faith. Then Luno stepped back, curling once again near the lamp, though its gaze never left Elias. The silence that followed was heavy. Elias's hand remained against the glass long after the creature lay still. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely audible. "You shouldn't exist," he whispered, eyes wet. "But I'm glad you do." Mira said nothing. She simply looked at him, then at the creature beyond the glass. And for the first time since the discovery began, she couldn't decide which one of them looked more human. Outside, the wind howled through the valley, cold and restless. But inside that sterile room, for the briefest of moments, something alive, something unexplainably pure, had found its place between them. And though the world saw a scientific marvel, Elias saw something far simpler, far truer. A soul that refused to give up, reaching out for the only heart that ever reached back. The storm came without warning. By nightfall, black clouds had swallowed the mountains surrounding the facility, their bellies swollen with lightning. Wind tore through the valley like an animal unchained, rattling the fences and howling against the walls of the biological containment division. Inside, the sterile hum of the lab had turned frantic. Lights flickered. Computers beeped erratically. The backup generators stuttered as power surged through the complex like an angry tide. Dr. Mira Novak barked orders from the control station. "Secure all observation pods. Containment seals at maximum protocol." Red emergency lights bathed the corridor in blood-colored flashes. The hum of the security doors grew louder, more strained. But it wasn't the storm that frightened her most. It was the sound coming from Chamber 3, the low, guttural cry. Luno was awake. He paced beneath the flickering lights, his movements sharp, panicked. His scales shimmered brighter than ever, reflecting the chaos around him. Every crash of thunder outside made him flinch, pressing himself against the far wall. 2 guards watched from the observation deck, weapons drawn. "He's getting agitated," one said. "His vitals are spiking," another reported. "Heart rate unstable. He's in distress." Mira slammed her fist against the console. "He's not dangerous. He's scared. Turn down the alarm, now!" But it was too late. The next lightning strike hit the power grid directly. The entire facility shuddered. Lights went black, then flared crimson. Sirens wailed through the halls. The glass walls of Luno's chamber pulsed as containment systems flickered in and out. "System fault!" someone shouted. "Backup barrier offline!" "Override it!" Mira yelled. "Do it manually!" In the chaos, no one noticed the elevator doors open at the end of the corridor. Dr. Elias Hartman stepped out, drenched from the rain, his hair plastered to his forehead. He'd driven all night through the storm the moment he heard about the power failure. When he saw the flashing red lights and heard the alarms, his heart clenched. "Where is he?" he demanded. Mira turned, startled. "Elias? You shouldn't be here." "Where?" he repeated, louder this time. "Containment chamber 3, but—" He didn't wait. He was already running. Inside the chamber, Luno's panic grew. The noise, the lights, the mechanical shriek of alarms. It was too much. He thrashed, tail whipping against the steel floor, claws scraping at the walls. His cry echoed through the speakers, half howl, half plea. The guards raised their weapons. "Ma'am, we can't control it. Requesting clearance to tranquilize." "Negative," Mira snapped, slamming the intercom. "Hold your fire! Do not shoot!" But her voice was drowned out by another burst of static and the roar of the storm outside. Luno's breathing quickened. His scales flickered brighter, shifting between silver and pale blue. The energy around him was palpable, vibrating in the air like static before lightning. Then the door hissed open. "Elias!" Mira's voice tore through the intercom. "Don't you dare!" But he was already inside. The room was chaos incarnate. Alarms screaming, wind whistling through unseen cracks, the smell of ozone thick in the air. Luno spun toward him instantly, eyes wide with terror. "Luno," Elias said softly, hands raised. "Hey, it's me." The creature backed away, shaking, scales flaring like armor. "It's all right, boy. Look at me." The lights flickered again, each flash illuminating the thin line of fear in Elias's face. He took another step forward, slowly, carefully. "Look at me, Luno. You're not alone." The sound of his voice, low, steady, familiar, cut through the noise like a thread of calm. Luno froze. For a heartbeat, everything went still. Then the glow from his scales softened, the trembling eased, his breathing slowed. "That's it," Elias whispered. "Good boy." He took another step and knelt beside him. The creature's eyes flicked up to meet his, pupils dilated, blue light reflecting off Elias's soaked coat. The wind outside screamed louder, rattling the glass. Elias reached out, his hand trembling but steady enough to rest against Luno's neck. The skin was cool, pulsing faintly beneath his fingers. "You're safe now," he murmured. "I'm right here." Luno let out a low whimper and curled beside him, pressing its head into Elias's shoulder. For a moment, the alarms, the storm, the fear, everything fell away. Then lightning struck the facility again. A blinding flash filled the room. A deafening crack split the air. Mira's scream echoed through the intercom. "Elias, get down!" The containment glass shattered. The explosion threw them both backward. Shards rained through the chamber as alarms blared louder. Sparks flew from the ceiling. Elias hit the floor hard. The breath knocked from his lungs. Luno yelped, a sound so human it tore through Mira's chest as she watched helplessly from behind the sealed doors. Smoke and electricity filled the air. Elias blinked through the haze, coughing. He saw the creature struggling to stand, bleeding faintly from its shoulder. He pushed himself up, dragging his aching body across the floor. "Luno," the creature whimpered. "Stay down," he said weakly, crawling toward it. Another spark burst overhead. He threw himself across Luno's body, shielding it as debris rained down. There was a blinding flash, another crack of thunder, and then silence. When the medics stormed in minutes later, the room looked like the aftermath of a war. The containment glass lay in shards, the floor scorched. Elias and Luno lay motionless in the center of it all. Mira rushed in behind them, heart pounding. "Elias!" she screamed. "He's down! Get a stretcher!" Luno stirred weakly beside him. Its body trembled, light pulsing faintly under the skin. Slowly, painfully, it crawled closer to Elias and nudged his face with its nose. A soft whine escaped its throat. Not fear this time, but grief. "Dear God," Mira whispered, tears breaking free. As medics lifted Elias onto the stretcher, unconscious but breathing, Luno let out a sound none of them had ever heard before. A deep, resonant cry that reverberated through the room. It wasn't a howl. It wasn't a roar. It was heartbreak, raw and unfiltered, echoing through the steel and glass until even the alarms seemed to fall silent in respect. Mira stood frozen as they wheeled Elias away. Her hands shook, her breath catching in her throat. Behind the cracked glass, Luno watched them go, its glowing eyes full of something no one in that room could explain. Love, loss, and the unbearable weight of understanding. Rain still lashed the valley when they brought Dr. Elias Hartman into the hospital. Thunder rolled above the ambulance as the stretcher doors slammed shut, sirens cutting through the storm. His body was limp, face pale beneath the harsh emergency lights. The medics worked in silence, voices clipped and urgent. "Pulse faint but steady," one shouted. "Multiple lacerations, possible concussion." They had no idea what he'd done. They only knew he'd thrown himself between a collapsing wall of glass and something the world still couldn't explain. 2 floors below, back at the containment facility, Luno lay motionless in his chamber. The glow that once danced beneath his skin had dimmed to a faint shimmer. Monitors blinked weakly beside the glass, their beeping slower with every passing hour. He hadn't eaten in days. He hadn't moved since the explosion. The staff whispered that the creature was shutting down, but Mira Novak knew better. It wasn't dying. It was mourning. From the moment Elias had been taken away, Luno had grown restless, pacing the perimeter of the glass enclosure, letting out low, aching cries. But when he realized Elias wasn't coming back, the fight left him. He simply lay down, head against the cold floor, eyes open but empty. Mira stood outside the chamber now, her reflection faintly visible in the glass. Her lab coat hung loose over her shoulders, the fatigue in her eyes deeper than any sleepless night could cause. "Vitals dropping," one technician murmured behind her. "He won't last long at this rate." "Keep the environment stable," she ordered quietly. "Don't touch him. Don't stress him." When the others left, Mira stayed, alone with the creature and the silence between them. She pressed her palm lightly to the glass. "He's alive," she whispered. "Elias is alive." But Luno didn't react. He didn't move, didn't blink. Only the slow rhythm of his chest betrayed the fragile thread still tying him to life. Days passed. The storm outside faded, but inside both man and creature, another storm brewed, one made of grief and uncertainty. In the hospital, Elias remained unconscious. Machines breathed for him, the faint beep of a heart monitor echoing in sterile rhythm. Tubes snaked across his arms, the scent of antiseptic hanging heavy in the air. Mira split her days between two prisons, the hospital ward and the glass chamber. Every morning she sat by Elias's bed, holding his hand in silence. Every night she returned to Luno's side, speaking softly through the glass. "Do you know," she said one evening, exhaustion cracking her voice, "he saved you without a thought for himself. He didn't hesitate, not for a second." Her eyes welled, but she forced a small smile. "He'd hate to see you like this, you know. You're both too stubborn to give up." For the first time in days, Luno stirred, a faint twitch of his ear, a flicker of light beneath his skin. Mira's heart leapt. "That's it, Luno, come back to me." But the creature only turned its head slightly, gaze fixed on the door, on the place Elias used to stand. Then it laid its head down again, pressing its cheek against the glass, and the light faded once more. Time blurred, morning and night became the same quiet ache. Elias dreamt in fragments, water, light, the sound of distant howling, a voice that whispered through the dark, "You're not alone." Then, one afternoon, his fingers moved. The nurse gasped, "Doctor, he's awake!" Mira was there within minutes. She burst into the room, barely breathing. Elias's eyes fluttered open slowly, confusion clouding them. The white light of the hospital ceiling stung his vision. His lips were dry, voice hoarse. "Mira?" She caught his hand, tears instantly welling. "Hey," she breathed, half laughing, half sobbing. "Hey, you're all right. You're safe." He blinked, struggling to focus. Then, after a long silence, his first words came, barely above a whisper. "Is he okay?" Mira froze. "Luno," Elias rasped. "Please tell me he's alive." Her throat tightened. She nodded quickly. "Yes, he's alive, but—" She hesitated. "He's not well." Elias tried to sit up, pain flashing across his face. "Take me to him." "You can't move yet," she said, pressing him back gently. "You're still healing." His voice broke. "Then tell me what's happening." Mira looked down. For a moment she couldn't speak. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small tablet. "You should see this," she said quietly. She pressed play. The video flickered to life, grainy security footage from the containment chamber. In the clip, Luno lay curled on the floor, unmoving. Then, faintly, a voice came through the intercom. A nurse mentioning Elias's name. At the sound, Luno lifted his head. Slowly, painfully, he dragged himself toward the glass and pressed his forehead against it. His eyes glowed faintly, reflecting the sterile lights above. Then he stayed there, unmoving, for nearly an hour. Elias's breath caught. His vision blurred. "He hears your name every day," Mira whispered. "Every time he does the same thing. He waits." Tears broke free before he could stop them. He covered his face with his hands, shoulders shaking. "He thinks I left him," he choked. Mira sat beside him, silent. For a long moment, the only sound in the room was Elias's quiet sobbing and the distant hum of hospital machines. When he finally looked up, his voice was soft but steady. He saved me too, you know. That night, I thought I was protecting him, but he's the one who kept me alive. Mira smiled faintly through her tears. Then maybe you both owe each other a second chance. Elias nodded weakly. His gaze drifted toward the rain-streaked window, where the clouds had finally begun to part. A faint light filtered through, pale and trembling, but real. He whispered, "Hold on, Luno. I'm coming back." Back at the facility, as if hearing a promise carried by the wind, Luno lifted his head from the cold floor. The sensors blinked softly. The heart monitor gave a single, stronger beep. For the first time in days, his tail moved, a faint, uncertain wag, but a heartbeat of hope all the same. The mountain air was clean in a way Elias had almost forgotten existed, sharp, cold, alive. The facility that had once felt like a prison had been transformed into something gentler now. A sanctuary, hidden deep among the pines. No flashing red lights, no sirens. Only quiet hums of life and the distant sound of wind through the trees. 6 months had passed since the storm. 6 months since Dr. Elias Hartman had last seen Luno. He moved slower now, the cane clicking softly against the polished floor as he walked down the corridor. His gait was uneven, a reminder of the injuries that never fully healed. But his eyes, once dulled by exhaustion, now held something different. Light. Through the long observation window, sunlight poured across a vast open enclosure surrounded by reinforced glass. Inside, Luno stood at the far edge, his silhouette framed against the pine-dappled mountain horizon. He was magnificent. No longer a trembling, sickly puppy, Luno had grown into something both familiar and extraordinary. Half shepherd, half mystery. His body was powerful yet graceful, the black and silver scales along his back glinting in the light like a living constellation. And yet, his eyes, those haunting blue eyes, still carried the soul of the creature Elias once held in his hands. Mira walked beside him quietly, her expression soft. "He's been waiting," she said. "Every day at dawn, he sits by the glass, just like this." Elias smiled faintly. "So do I." She rested a hand on his shoulder. "We've run every test imaginable. His vitals are strong. No signs of degeneration or aggression. Whatever he is, he's stable." "Peaceful," Elias corrected. Mira nodded, her voice lowering. "He never responded to anyone else. But when we mentioned your name..." She didn't finish. She didn't have to. Elias took a step forward, leaning against the railing. His breath caught in his chest. The moment Luno turned his head, the world seemed to stop. For a long heartbeat, neither moved. Then Luno's ears perked. His tail, half fur, half scale, flicked once, uncertain, almost disbelieving. Elias whispered, his throat tight, "Hey, boy." The reaction was instantaneous. Luno bounded forward, the ground trembling beneath his weight, claws clicking lightly against the reinforced floor. He reached the glass and pressed himself against it, front paws braced as close as he could get. The glass fogged where his breath hit it. Elias's cane clattered to the ground as he stepped closer, pressing his palm to the glass. "You made it, boy," he whispered. His voice cracked on the last word. "You made it." Luno's body trembled with energy. Not fear, but recognition. The light within his scales shimmered softly, fading in rhythm with his breathing. He lowered his head, pressing it against the glass right where Elias's hand rested. Tears welled in Elias's eyes. His fingers traced the barrier, helpless to feel the warmth on the other side. "I missed you," he breathed. "More than you'll ever know." Mira turned away slightly, blinking back her own tears. Around them, staff members had paused their work. No one spoke. Even the hum of the machines seemed to hold its breath. Elias leaned forward, forehead almost touching the glass. "You're home now, Luno. No more cages. No more tests. Just sky and peace." Luno tilted his head at the sound of his name. Then, as though understanding the words, he gave a low, melodic sound, something between a growl and a sigh. Elias smiled through his tears. "That's right. It's over now." Then suddenly, something changed. The faint blue glow in Luno's eyes, the unearthly light that had always marked him as something other, began to flicker. Elias blinked, unsure if it was a trick of the sunlight. But the glow didn't fade completely. It shifted. The blue softened, swirling like water darkening to amber. Within seconds, his eyes had turned the warm, earthy brown of an ordinary German shepherd, gentle, soulful, and heartbreakingly human. Elias's lips parted in disbelief. "Luno," the creature blinked once, slow and deliberate. The same gesture it had made all those months ago, the day they first met. Then, with a trembling exhale, Luno lowered his head to the ground, pressing his muzzle against the glass. A single tear slid down from the corner of his now amber eye, tracing a shining path down the side of his face. Elias's own tears fell freely. He pressed his palm harder against the glass, his voice trembling. "Don't you do that to me," he whispered. "Don't make me think you understand. Not like this." But he knew, in the deepest part of himself, that Luno did understand. That this was no random reaction, no coincidence of biology. It was farewell and forgiveness in one unspoken gesture. Behind him, Mira whispered, her voice barely audible. "He changed for you." The staff nearby stood still, eyes wide, some with hands over their mouths. The sight was too intimate, too sacred to interrupt. The light caught both man and creature in a single reflection on the glass. Elias's tear-streaked face mirroring Luno's bowed head. It was impossible to tell where one ended and the other began. Elias leaned closer, whispering through the barrier. "You were never a mistake, Luno. Never." Luno lifted his gaze slightly, his eyes soft, calm, not sad now, just complete. Elias nodded slowly, his own tears catching the sunlight. "You found your place, didn't you?" The creature's tail gave a single, faint wag. Mira stepped forward, unable to hold back any longer. "Elias, look," she said softly. "He's not afraid. Anymore." Elias smiled through his grief. "Neither am I." Outside, the wind swept across the mountain peaks, rustling the tall pines. The late afternoon sun bathed the sanctuary in gold, its rays breaking through the glass like threads of hope. For the first time in months, the air felt weightless. And as Luno settled near the window, eyes closed, head still touching the glass, Elias whispered one last time, not to a creature of science or myth, but to an old friend who had taught him what it meant to believe again. "You're home, my boy," he said. "You're finally home." The sanctuary was silent that night. Moonlight spilled across the valley like silver dust, painting the mountains in a soft glow. The wind whispered through the pines, brushing against the glass walls of the research dome where Luno rested. The world slept, but Dr. Elias Hartman did not. He walked slowly down the empty corridor, his cane tapping softly against the floor, echoing into the stillness. His coat hung loosely over his frail frame. Every step carried the weight of both healing and farewell. When he reached the main enclosure, he paused by the security console. The cameras were on, the recording lights blinking red, but he didn't care. He wasn't here to study or to observe. He was here to say goodbye. Inside the glass habitat, Luno was lying beneath the glow of the artificial moonlight lamp. His breathing was deep, slow, peaceful, The faint shimmer that once pulsed beneath his skin had dimmed to a soft, rhythmic glint, like a heartbeat fading into still water. Elias stood at the threshold for a long moment, just watching. "You always liked the night, didn't you?" he murmured. His voice was low, roughened by time and emotion. "It's quieter then. No noise, no lights, no one asking what you are." He pressed his hand against the control panel. The door to the observation chamber hissed open with a sigh, and the cold air rolled in, brushing against his face. Elias stepped inside. The smell was faint but familiar, earthy, like rain and metal and fur. He limped closer to the glass partition that separated man from miracle. On the other side, Luno stirred, as if sensing him. The creature lifted its head, eyes half open, glowing faintly beneath the moonlight that filtered through the glass ceiling. Elias smiled, though his chest ached. "Hey, boy." Luno blinked slowly, lifting himself to his feet. His body moved with deliberate grace, no longer weak, but tired in the way old souls are tired. He padded forward until he stood directly across from Elias, divided by only a few inches of glass. The two stared at each other, silent. "I shouldn't have waited so long," Elias whispered. "But I wanted you to have your peace. You earned it." His hand trembled slightly as he placed it flat against the glass. The surface was cold, but beneath it, he swore he could feel the faint hum, the same strange vibration he had felt the night he first found Luno in the clinic sink. "You remember that sound, don't you?" he said softly, almost smiling. "That little hum. I thought it was the machines. Turns out, it was just you." Luno tilted his head, the faintest flicker of light tracing down the ridge of his spine. Then, slowly, so slowly it felt intentional, he lifted one paw and placed it against the glass, mirroring Elias's hand. For a moment, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. The lights flickered once, then again. The faint hum returned, vibrating through the walls, through the floor, through Elias's chest. It wasn't mechanical. It wasn't power surging. It was alive. The connection between them, once formed in fear, forged in compassion, was speaking again. Elias's throat tightened. He blinked back the tears of sobs that blurred his vision. "You hear me, don't you?" he whispered. "You always did." Luno's eyes shimmered faintly, blue deepening into soft amber once more. The light in them wasn't otherworldly anymore. It was human, warm, knowing. Elias leaned forward, voice trembling. "The unknown isn't meant to be feared, only understood." For the first time in his life, he didn't say it as a scientist, or even as a man searching for answers. He said it like a prayer. The hum grew softer now, pulsing in rhythm with their breaths. Two beings, two lives, sinking for one last moment. Then, slowly, the glow beneath Luno's skin began to fade. "Rest now," Elias whispered. "You're home." Luno's eyelids lowered, his breathing slowing into a steady, peaceful rhythm. He remained by the glass, paw still pressed against it. A faint sigh escaped him, soft as wind in grass. The hum dissolved into silence. The light inside him dimmed completely. Elias stood there for a long time, hand still against the glass, tears sliding silently down his cheeks. The world outside continued untouched. The wind, the stars, the endless stillness of the mountains. "Thank you," he whispered finally, "for letting me see you." He turned off the lamp as he left. The moonlight did the rest, bathing the enclosure in gentle silver. The sanctuary had changed. Grass now grew around the domed structure, wildflowers spilling through cracks in the stone. Tourists came rarely, mostly scientists, sometimes children on educational trips. The world had moved on, as it always does. Inside the main hall, at the entrance to the observation deck, stood a simple plaque cast in bronze. It read, Luno, the bridge between worlds, discovered by Dr. Elias Hartman, a creature that reminded humanity that life's greatest mysteries begin with kindness. Beneath the inscription, engraved in smaller letters, were Elias's final recorded words. Sometimes, the most extraordinary creatures are sent to remind us how to love the ordinary ones better. Visitors often stood there in silence, reading, staring through the glass at the empty enclosure bathed in soft morning light. Some said they felt a vibration in the air when the wind passed just right, a faint hum, almost imperceptible, like a heartbeat echoing from another time. Mira Novak, now gray-haired but still sharp-eyed, visited every year on the anniversary of the storm. She always brought a small sprig of pine and placed it by the plaque. Then she would look toward the mountains and smile. "I hope you found him," she would whisper, "wherever you both went." And sometimes, just sometimes, when the moon was full and the air perfectly still, the glass would fog faintly, as if something warm had brushed against it from the other side. No alarms, no science, no fear. Just the soft echo of understanding, and the quiet, eternal bond between a man and the creature that changed everything he believed about life, love, and the limits of the world. No matter how strange or extraordinary the story of Luno may seem, at its heart, it's about something simple, the quiet, unbreakable bond between a human and a dog. It reminds us that loyalty doesn't need words, and that love in its purest form can bridge even the widest distance between two souls. German shepherds have always had that gift. Strength wrapped in gentleness, courage fueled by devotion. They don't just guard our homes, they guard our hearts. If you've ever looked into your own dog's eyes and felt that silent understanding, you already know what Luno taught Elias. Sometimes, the ones we rescue end up rescuing us. And if you ever want to connect more deeply with your own four-legged friend, there are some wonderful resources out there that help you understand them in a new way. I can share one if you'd like. It's nothing fancy, just something that touched me and might touch you too. Take care of your dog tonight. Maybe give them an extra pat. They've already given you more than you'll ever realize.